Hello, Mueller junkies. Just a quick note that our online store is up with all sorts of new Mueller, She Wrote swag. And for one more week, you can subscribe and become a Patreon to receive the weekly newsletter, my show notes, ad-free episodes, all of the bonus episodes, and the book club reviews for as little as $1 a month. After October 1st, the minimum tier goes up to $3, but you can lock it in now at the lower rate. So shop on the online store and become a patron by visiting MuellerSheWrote.com today. And when you're done there, please head to Apple Podcasts, that's the network formerly known as iTunes, and give us a rating and subscribe. That simple action goes a long way toward helping us get the word out about the Mueller investigation. And thank you all for supporting women in podcasting.
So to be clear, Mr. Trump has no financial relationships with any Russian oligarchs.
That's what he said. That's what I said. That's obviously what our position is.
I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians.
What do I have to get involved with Putin for? I have nothing to do with Putin. I've never spoken to him. I don't know anything about him other than he will respect me. Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
So, it is political. You're a communist.
No, Mr. Green. Communism is just a red herring. Like all members of the oldest profession, I'm a capitalist.
Hello, and welcome to Mueller, She Wrote. I'm your anonymous host, AG. I use a pseudonym to avoid violating the Hatch Act as I work for Trump's executive branch. With me, as always, is Jaleesa Johnson.
Hello.
Jordan Coburn is out of town this week.
Good evening, San Diego. I'm Veronica Corningstone. Tits McGee is on vacation.
We have a great show for you this week, you guys. Jaleesa is going to cover new reporting on the money that moved around before and after the Trump Tower meeting. And I'm going to be covering the Kavanaugh nomination story and what's happening with Dr. Ford's negotiations to testify to the Senate Judiciary Committee. We also have an interview with New York Times bestselling author of The View from Flyover Country, Sarah Kendzior, and an in-depth interview about all this week's news with actor, comedian, and activist Rosie O'Donnell.
Oh, my God.
I know. She's so awesome.
This is crazy.
Before we get to all that, I don't know how we're going to top that next week. I think we actually have Michael McFaul coming on.
Oh, snap.
He's the former ambassador to Russia under Obama. We talked about him a lot in Russian Roulette by Isakov and Korn. So that's like a legit guest. So I got to put on
fancy. Put on pants.
Put on pants for that. It's usually no pants interviews, but before we get to all that, we do have some corrections from last week's show. First, I kept calling Gary Cohn Roy Cohn, which kicked up hilarious tweets and discussions about the ghost of Roy Cohn removing documents from Trump's desk. I blame the cold medicine that Jordan and I were mainlining at the time, but thanks to everyone that pointed that out. We appreciate it. Additionally, I wanted to note another correction that governors do not appoint House members when one resigns or dies. They only appoint senators that way. For the House, the Constitution specifies that they hold special elections to replace the House member. So those are the corrections. If you have any corrections this week, particularly in the Q&A section, because I just kind of riff those, nothing's prepared there.
I like it, though. So, it's just off the cuff,
It's riffy.
Yeah.
Any corrections, just email them to us at hello@MuellerSheWrote.com or tweet at us at MuellerSheWrote. So we've got a lot of news to cover, so let's jump in with just the facts. So the bulk of the news this week was focused around the Kavanaugh nomination and the Washington Post story in which Christine Blasey Ford came forward publicly with sexual assault allegations against the nominee. Kavanaugh's popularity is now -9 in the USA Today poll. That is the lowest of any nominee in the history of the poll. And Trump is telling his minions at rallies that they care about Kavanaugh. We care about Kavanaugh, not so much the other side. He actually said that. That's kind of obvious. I'll be covering the story in Hot Notes with Rosie O'Donnell, and I'll be issuing a trigger warning when that comes up because both Rosie and I talk about our Me Too stories and why we didn't report. We'll be posting the entire interview unedited for patrons, so if you haven't signed up, head to patreon.com/MuellerSheWrote so you can hear the extras, but we will be speaking to her in the episode about Kavanaugh, so stay tuned for that.
How do you get a -9? Is it like a different polling system, or is that like...
Basically, they take how many people want you and how many people don't want you, and they subtract it.
So you get negative people, dead people?
Right. No, so like if 10 people want you and 20 people don't want you, that's negative 10.
Oh.
So yeah, he's at negative 9 right now. And he was at
Okay.
negative 4 last week, and he was at 4 the week before, and he was at, I think, 9 the week before that. So, or week or couple weeks, every
Interesting.
couple
So
weeks.
you want to get a, 0 or higher?
You want much higher, yeah. You want way more people wanting you than not wanting you. You want a plus. I think I don't have any information on what the past ones were. I can't tell you, but
Yeah.
I think Maddow had said the next closest one was like a 12 or something. But I honestly I can't remember. I'm guessing. So
Maddow's a 12
there's our
in my
first.
heart.
Turn her up to 12.
It's conjecture. But.
So there's our first correction. Email us. Not yours, mine. So early in the week, we learned that Ronan Farrow, he's like the little adorable reporter, very popular, Pulitzer Prize winner. He's now in possession of Trump's Apprentice B-roll tapes, according to Tom Arnold. B-roll is like the behind-the-scenes bloopers. Well, these tapes could include the tape where Omarosa, Manigault Newman says she heard Donald Trump use the N-word.
Right.
That could be one of them, along with a lot of sexually inappropriate content where he's hitting on women and harassing people. Ronan Farrow earned a Pulitzer, as I said before, with his reporting on Harvey Weinstein. So apparently, Tom Arnold and the producer of The Apprentice, Mark Burnett, got into a physical altercation last Sunday at the Emmys, just 2 days before Tom Arnold's show Hunt for the Trump Tapes was to premiere on Viceland. If this reporting is true, we might see this come out from Ronan Farrow in the coming weeks, so put some beans on that.
It's crazy. And I love the fact that like there are Trump bloopers out there because he just seems like, a blooper every time. So it's like, it's crazy that it gets worse,
God, I can't even imagine. Speaking of beans, let me explain beans, because we get a lot of questions about beans.
Mm-hmm.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up. Buttercup is marrying Humperdinck in a little less than half an hour. So all we have to do is get in, break up the wedding, steal the princess, make our escape.
So a long time ago, when I was doing stand-up, I still do stand-up, but I used to too. Shout out to Mitch
Rest in
Hedberg.
peace.
I know, rest in peace. Out for the homie. I got coffee. I'll just, no. Anyway, there was a comedian named Dallas McLaughlin who I worked with a lot. We hosted an open mic night together, back to back at a place called the Blarney Stone Pub here in town, known as Best Open Mic / Worst Open Mic in town for, it was about 9 years. Like, that's where you went if you wanted a hard time. Like, if you wanted people to give you a really hard time and heckle you and you had to kind of like cut your teeth, that's where you went. It was
You want to grow, yeah.
It was really difficult because there was just a bunch of old crusty Irish sailing guys, and they were just like, their beards are older than me, and they, "Mayor, get off the stage," blah, and it was awesome. So he used to have this bit about, this was during the time when Larry the Cable Guy was a big thing, and he had a catchphrase, "Get her done." Remember that? And then the other guy had, "You might be a redneck if,"
Right.
They had that whole blue collar comedy tour thing. So catchphrases were a thing. And Dallas was like, well, obviously I have to, if I'm going to be famous, I have to have a catchphrase. So he was running, part of one of his bits, one of his jokes was he's running these ridiculous catchphrases by the audience. And one of them was, "Put some beans on it." And it always just stuck in my head, made me laugh. And when I was trying to come up with a catchphrase for us, like, how Maddow has "Watch This Space" or "Put a pin in it," I was like, I need something like that, like "Watch this space," basically. And I tried all sorts of different things. I did polls online. I asked the Hive Mind, and I couldn't come up with one. So it just dawned on me. I was like, I'm just gonna say "Put some beans on it," because that's ridiculous, and that's where that came from. So we had him on episode 24, I think, to record all sorts of different varieties of beans.
We have a plethora of bean recordings.
We do.
Yeah.
So that's where that comes from. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know. Also, back to the news. The testing on the $20 million Trump wall prototypes here in Otay Mesa, in our backyard, is finished. And the reports have come out showing that the project is a complete and total failure, utter failure. First of all, anyone with half a brain knows that physical walls are ineffective and virtual technology and drone technology is better and safer for patrolling the border. And I don't mean drones that shoot you. I just mean like camera drones. Shooting drones are obviously not safer. But all 8 prototypes. Remember they had like 8 little sections of the wall?
That's right. Yeah. Like, oh my God, like they're shopping.
Yeah. They were all breached by at least one of the tactical teams. Every single one. And the scaling results of when they were scaling the walls, those were totally redacted. And they failed to even test how the prototypes fared against tunneling. So the project is over. It's a complete failure. A total waste of $20 million.
Is it really over?
It's over.
Oh man.
Well, the wall isn't over.
Right.
The testing is over.
Got it.
$20 million down the tubes. I know a few veterans who could have used that money, but
are they going to try again? Like with a new?
Probably.
I guess that's how it works, right? You just keep testing, keep making money, yeah.
The best thing we can do is stall the wall, but
stall the wall.
But I mean that, in November it's not going to be an issue anymore.
Hopefully.
Right.
Vote.
Show up.
Yes.
You have to show up for that to be true.
I saw Fahrenheit 11.9 last night. Holy crap.
Good?
So good.
We'll have to watch that.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe we'll do a review of it or
yes,
something.
we need to.
Yeah, but you have to show up. Don't make a liar out of me. I'll be mad. And then you don't even know.
You don't want to see AG mad.
Monday, The Atlantic ran a story about good old Lindsey Graham, who made the rounds on the Sunday shows, the talk shows, with Republican John Kennedy. It freaks me out there's a Republican named Kennedy. But anyway, they were saying that Mueller should be allowed to finish his investigation. Well, here to chat with us today about this new reporting on Lindsey Graham crackers is writer and author of the New York Times bestselling book, The View from Flyover Country. Please welcome Sarah Kendzior. Sarah, welcome to Mueller, She Wrote.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
We're glad you're here to talk about this, because this is interesting, because all the way back in 2017, you had reminded everyone, because I feel like the country collectively forgot, that it wasn't just the DNC and the DCCC that was hacked. The GOP and the RNC were also hacked by the Russians. And that's in part the reason that senators and Republicans like Lindsey Graham went from being scathingly critical of Trump to like whipped sycophants, praising him at every opportunity. At least I thought so. And recently a news org picked that up and ran the headline like it was new, saying counterterrorism expert says Lindsey Graham is compromised. So can you tell us a little bit about your theory back in 2017 and what kind of evidence has come out since then that really supports your assertion?
Yeah, I did a lot of interviews, I guess about a year ago, starting in October, about Lindsey Graham and about the Republicans in general, and why so many of them had done a 180 from, I guess, mildly criticizing Trump to having this level of obsequiousness, especially since more information was being revealed by Mueller. People like Manafort were being indicted. If anything, it seemed like they would move in the direction of admitting Republican culpability and Trump's culpability, but we saw the opposite. And so, yes, everything you just said was true. The Republicans were hacked. The case of Graham is very interesting because he, as an individual, was also hacked. It wasn't just that he may have been part of a broader attack on the RNC. He was attacked as an individual, and he spoke about this immediately after the election, which was also the time that he and John McCain called for an investigation into Russian interference. And so, it has been my belief that he's compromised in some way. I don't necessarily think it's even a matter of blackmail. It could be a matter of threats. It could be a matter of complicity because we know of his own ties to Russian oligarchs as well as ties in the GOP. There's also other issues to take into account, careerism, opportunism. But I think this is beyond that. I think when you do such a hard 180, as Lindsey Graham did on this topic, where everyone can just see you, flipping in public, can just see whatever is left of your integrity drain away, that there's something darker at play.
Yeah, and can you go into, you had mentioned some of the Russian oligarch ties that he has. What are you talking about there?
There was an article, I think it was in the Dallas Morning News maybe, that came out late last December or early in January that laid out the ties of a lot of prominent Republican officials to Russian oligarchs, including Lindsey Graham, who I believe was tied to Oleg Deripaska, but people should double check that. And, he was tied as an individual in terms of his own investments, his own campaign. But I think what's important to know is that, so many prominent players managing the finances of the Republican National Convention and of the GOP in general are enmeshed in the Russian interference case. And, they've admitted to it. People like Michael Cohen, people like Rick Gates. And so I think, as a whole, the party is tainted. And if one goes down, others will go down with them. But, what I would like to know almost more than why did Graham flip is why did he inaugurate the investigation into Russian interference to begin with? Because clearly he feels vulnerable. Clearly he feels, threatened and that there's something to hide. But he and McCain were the first two Republican politicians, and for a while the only two, to come out and take a hard stand, and call for this. So I'm wondering why he took that risk to begin with.
Yeah, it does seem odd, and it's interesting to note, as you said, that he was individually hacked, much like John Podesta was phished using spear phishing, which is common for, I can't remember if it's Fancy Bear or Cozy Bear. It's one of the bears. It's their way. So, it's interesting that he was saying, like, there'll be hell to pay and all this other stuff, and then all of a sudden, shoop, he kind of flipped around like that. So, and we've been, after you came out with that, we were like, yeah, what's up with that? We started this podcast late last October when Manafort and Gates were indicted. And I think you're right with Cohen. He got that $500,000 into his little essential consultant slush fund from a Russian oligarch. And yeah, they're just really enmeshed in it. So it's interesting. And what I wanted to ask you about, though, is this week, Andrew Craigie of The Atlantic put out a story talking about how Lindsey Graham had abandoned his support for Jeff Sessions in late August, saying the Mueller probe was biased against Trump and maybe it's time for a new AG after the midterms. But recently, this week, he went in on an interview, Graham did, saying, and Kennedy, voicing their support of the Mueller investigation, or at least saying that they think Mueller is going to be fair and that he should be allowed to continue unfettered. What do you think his strategy is with those statements if he's compromised? Do you think he's just kind of sort of putting up little safety nets, or like what's the deal?
Yeah, I'm suspicious of basically any media story that comes out involving Jeff Sessions and this appearance of feuding within the Trump administration and Jeff Sessions. Anything that positions him as a white hat, I'm incredibly suspicious of, because I think the only white hat related to Jeff Sessions is shaped like a cone and comes with a robe. But Jeff Sessions is also, he's implicated in this. He's implicated in the Russian interference case. He was hired as a foreign policy advisor for Trump. He's the one who brought on Papadopoulos. He's the one who met with Kislyak. He allegedly was supposed to recuse himself. Everyone talks about this as if it actually happened. He didn't recuse himself in practice. He went ahead and signed on to the firing of Comey. And there's no real indication to me that Sessions is somehow this bulwark, against Trump and his team interfering with the Mueller investigation. I think that it benefits them to think that there's this friction, because then we think, due process, the investigation is continuing as it should be, and even Jeff Sessions is doing his job, and we're not in tremendous jeopardy. I'm suspicious of that. So now I'm trying to remember the second part of your question beyond, Graham flipping on that. I think that there's some safety. Like if, I don't want to sound too paranoid here, but like if a Republican feels that the results of the Mueller investigation are going to be inconsequential, meaning, because certain people will be indicted, they'll confirm, a lot of illicit and illegal behavior happened, but nothing will really come of it. Certain people stay in the administration like Sessions and Kushner, and of course Trump, and of course the Republicans themselves won't be punished. If they feel confident in that, then I think they feel confident in kind of, cheering the Mueller probe on. And then, maybe they switch up their rhetoric a little bit if Trump or somebody else becomes offended by that, because I'm not sure that, Trump plays that particular game quite as adeptly. But yeah, I'm wary of all the Sessions talk. I don't trust it.
Yeah, it could be that, or it could be, them putting up a flag saying, in case what does come out is really bad, I wanted to have been in support of the Mueller investigation so that I can walk away with my hands clean, like casino hands. But it is very, I'm really wary of it too. And I honestly think that all of the Trump, tweets and speeches against Sessions are really just him trying to lay a groundwork or set up a pretext for firing him after the midterms without it looking like obstruction. But we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, we'll have a Democratic bicameral House in place, at least the House, if not the Senate, and we can then reopen these investigations and take them where they should be. Now, do you think other people like Ted Cruz, who's just turned into this cuck for him, or Rohrabacher or Nunes? I think I've heard rumors that people are told to stay away from Rohrabacher and Nunes because they're under investigation. Those are rumors, obviously, but do you think maybe they could also be compromised by something like this?
Oh, God, well, Rohrabacher's been compromised forever. I mean, I used to study Uzbekistan, and, Dana Rohrabacher is basically the only person in Congress who could be relied on to praise and celebrate the dictator of Uzbekistan, Islam Karimov, who was just, one of the most brutal dictators in the world. And at one point I was giving a talk about this in D.C., and he was there for whatever reason, to talk at an institution or something, and got really angry. And it's not just Uzbekistan, obviously. He's a huge Putin fan. Like, basically, if there's a post-Soviet dictator, Dana Rohrabacher just loves him. And I do think that there's a kleptocratic part to this. I think some of it is just veneration for autocrats. I don't really know what drove him there, but it's so consistent. But I think, he has money in play. It's extremely strange behavior. Nunes is more a mystery to me, because he's younger. He hasn't been in politics for a very long time. Unlike Rohrabacher, he's had kind of inconsistencies in his position. You may remember, I think it was March 2017, he gave his first press conference where he was basically called out for being a lapdog for Trump instead of a watchdog for the Intel Committee. And he looked terrified. He looked like, oh, God, I've been caught. I might have to face repercussions. But then he just went on to do the same things that he's been doing, which is basically he attempts to obstruct the investigation. And I think the longer that he's not held accountable for that behavior, the more emboldened he is to do it. And that's true for the Republicans in general. But I think for someone sort of new to politics like Nunes, the lesson he's learning is just, stay in the game on the wrong team, never flinch, and ultimately you'll be rescued. And that's a really terrible lesson for, him to be absorbing and for America in general.
Yeah, I agree. I really agree with you on the Rohrabacher points, too, because, with this whole Manafort cooperation now, it's really bad for Rohrabacher because they work together lobbying for Yanukovych with the help of, like, Van der Zwaan and Gates and the Skadden law firm, and that's why Greg Craig was recently handed over by the Mueller investigation, and they're weighing whether or not, and he's a Democrat, whether or not they're going to get him on violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act as well. So it's all really interesting.
Yeah, no, it's frightening. And another thing about Rohrabacher that people forget is that he was the initial person floated as Secretary of State after Trump was elected. He was the very first name. And later on, we went on to find out that, the Kremlin had played a role in selecting Tillerson, likely because they wanted the sanctions lifted and they were familiar with Tillerson from his Order of Friendship medal, but also from the oil industry. And the minute I saw that they were going to make Dana Rohrabacher Secretary of State, I was like, there's absolutely no way in hell that this was not a Kremlin plot, obviously in tandem with a lot of willing Americans. But I was like, come on, like you are just showing, all your cards. And this is way back, I think, in December 2016 when most people thought, I was crazy and that anyone who said Russia had interfered with the election was crazy. And I was just like, this is so blatant. And I do think that he probably played a bigger role in this entire series of events than has been revealed, and I hope that Mueller goes after him hard.
Yeah, well, they are definitely America's dumbest criminals at this point, but well, everyone, you can get Sarah's book of essays on politics, the economy, and the erosion of U.S. institutions and trust. It's called The View from Flyover Country. You can get it everywhere books are sold. So, Sarah, Kendzior, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
Wednesday, we learned that the sentencing of Michael Flynn is set for December 18th. Cohen will be sentenced December 12th. Trump will call this the new war on Christmas. Fine by me.
He was mad last holiday season, too, wasn't he? He was like, this has to be wrapped up by Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Or he's mad that he can't go to a party because he did something stupid. He's weird.
Yeah.
We also learned Wednesday that Senators Blumenthal, Leahy, and Doug Jones, that's the newly elected Democrat from Alabama that beat pedo Roy Moore, he sent a letter to Don McGahn. That's the White House counsel, right? That's the rock and roll guy who has the lawyer Burke. And that's the same lawyer that Priebus and Bannon have, So that guy, McGahn, he's the one who spent 30 hours talking to Mueller, and everybody freaked out, except we were having a party. The White House counsel. So they sent him a letter regarding the Kavanaugh nomination, and they had a few questions for McGahn, and the letter says, quote, "These questions do not come to us in a vacuum. Press reports from February of this year indicate that you were aware of the domestic violence allegations against former Staff Secretary Rob Porter over a year before the allegations became public. Additionally, it has been reported that Kavanaugh recommended Rob Porter for the job," unquote. So the senators want to know if McGahn was aware of Dr. Ford's allegations before they became public, when he knew and what details he had prior to the allegations becoming public, and if anyone else knew about the allegations besides him. Further, the letter goes on to address the signed letter from 65 women Kavanaugh went to high school with. Then Blumenthal asked if McGahn was involved in drafting or coordinating that letter. When it was drafted, they want to know when it was drafted, what prompted it, whose idea was it, if it was coordinated with anyone in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and if any of it was drafted before Dr. Ford's allegations became public. Finally, the letter asked what, if any, steps did McGahn take to investigate the allegations against Kavanaugh, if he's aware of any other allegations against Kavanaugh. Two big things. Other allegations against Kavanaugh.
I hadn't considered that, and it's crazy because not to say that one isn't too many, but enough, but it just feels like a lot of them are repeat offenders. It's such a simple thing to them. It's like, oh, back in the day, everyone did this in my group, so there could be other women. There really could.
Well, a study shows from RAND that the average rapist or attempted rapist will do it 5.8 times in their life.
5.8? What's the 0.8 about?
Well, it's an average.
That's crazy. Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I just got it really.
You only put it 8/10 of the way in. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I'm like, that's an attempt, but it's still wrong. Yeah, harassment.
3/4 of the way is 10 inches. No, it isn't. Stop it. Just because you showed it to me twice doesn't make it 10 inches. Anyway, we're going to keep you posted with when and how McGahn responds to this letter. As we know, McGahn has been fully cooperating with the Mueller investigation, as I had stated earlier, and there have been accusations from Democratic senators that Kavanaugh had spoken with Trump's lawyer's firm about the Mueller investigation. It'll be interesting to see how all that comes together. And again, that's a good point to make. A lot of people would be like, why are you talking about Kavanaugh? I'm here to listen about Mueller. But Kavanaugh has a lot to do with the Mueller investigation. If he gets seated on the Supreme Court, here's a Trump case, and we know Kavanaugh is very prone to believe that the president is above the law. He's written extensively about it, and he has not promised to recuse himself. So it's got a lot to do with the Mueller investigation and that whole Kamala Harris line of questioning we saw in the confirmation hearings where she asked, did you talk to anyone at this law firm? It's kind of a big deal.
Totally, absolutely.
So it's Kazowitz's law firm, by the way. That's Trump's lawyer. Trump sat out Wednesday. On to Thursday. No, Trump set out Wednesday with more attacks against Jeff Sessions. It's clear to me he's trying to create a false pretext for firing Sessions so it doesn't look like obstruction of justice. I think he maybe learned his lesson after firing 7 other people.
8 times the charm. Yeah.
8 out of 10. He's been laying that groundwork for weeks now, and most expect he'll fire the attorney general after the midterms, if not sooner. So we'll keep an eye on that. Mm-hmm. Another story this week was Trump's unprecedented call for the release of unredacted parts of the Carter Page FISA warrant, along with all FBI interviews regarding the FISA warrant. Nunes chimed in, butthole, saying the documents could be released in a couple hours, and it should, quote, worry the heck out of Americans if they're not.
Worry the heck. I'm worried about other things, Nunes.
Yeah, like he's got a really good track record with classified information. Mm-hmm. The president received a heavy pushback on this from Democrats and intelligence officials. The most idiotic part was that Trump was citing transparency, asking to release pages 10 through 12 and 17 through 34 of the FISA warrant application. I guess transparency is only on those pages.
Oh, interesting.
Thursday night, Trump began walking back his demands with a full 180 on Friday when he tweeted that he had received calls from several allies asking him not to release the documents, and even going as far as to say it would look bad for him to release them in light of the Russia investigation. God, do you think so? Also of note, it was Rosenstein who apparently convinced Trump not to declassify the documents after spending a couple hours at the White House Thursday night. The LA Times reported Friday that it was in fact Fox News anchors that had convinced the president to try to declassify the documents, and I think their motive was to set up a confrontation with Rosenstein and perhaps give Trump a reason to fire him. Well, that appears to have failed, and only a handful of hours later, some crazy news dropped Friday about Rosenstein, and I'll go over that later. Kind of suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
And then in a weird piece of reporting from the Talking Points memo, Trump told a reporter from The Hill that he should have fired Comey when he won the primary, or at least after the Republican convention.
That's not how it works.
Obama was still the president at that point, and Trump had not yet won the election. To me, and maybe I'm nuts, maybe I'm tinfoil here, but aside from Trump not understanding how shit works, this speaks to Trump knowing before the election even happened that he was going to win. Quote, I should have fired him before I got here. I should have fired him the day I won the primaries. How can you say that with so much confidence, completely dismissing the actual election as a rubber stamp? It's interesting, right?
Oh, definitely. And I always find it interesting that even though Trump seemed to know he was going to win, he also seemed like he didn't want to win. It just seems like a prisoner. But I don't want to pity him either. You know, he's also a piece of shit.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, it's a weird situation.
Then a big story dropped Thursday that Cohen has been cooperating with Mueller pretty extensively without a cooperation agreement in place.
I am Captain Cooperation.
It's important to remember that Mueller is not handling the Cohen case, but Cohen, you can remember he handed it off to the Southern District of New York, but Cohen is nonetheless talking to Mueller about key issues, including, according to sources, obstruction, money laundering in his business dealings with Russia, that Seder Trump Tower deal, whether or not Trump offered him a pardon, and collusion. He's also apparently talking to the New York State AG. I like just AG.
Yeah.
It's not me. It's the Attorney General of
Good
New York,
initials, though.
New York State. About the Trump Organization and the Trump Foundation. This is big because Cohen is all over the dossier, you guys, which is still to this date has not been debunked. No part of it has been disproven.
People dispute Prague. I guess that one is the yet to be determined, right? Some people are like, no, he definitely wasn't there. And I'm like, I could have sworn they said there were a couple of passports and they're looking into that.
Yeah, it's not been debunked yet.
Yeah.
Cohen has his hand in the payments of foreign hackers also, and he knows about the oligarch money coming into Trump coffers. This is a big deal, though it's of note that Cohen is totally tainted. He's complete POS.
Totally tainted, yeah.
Totes taint.
Nice.
Everybody knows it, which may be why he waited until after he pleaded guilty to start cooperating, so as to look as though he weren't trying to dangle for pardons, you know. We'll put some beans on it. Beans. And we'll keep you posted. Then Friday, we learned about more money changing hands shortly before and directly after the Trump Tower meeting, and Jaleesa is going to update that later in the show. Then Friday, we got an update on the case that could close some of the options Mueller may have to release a public report on Trump or transmit one to Congress. Remember a couple weeks ago, episode 44, I talked about a decades-old murder case everyone was freaking out about because it could favor a reading of court rules that would require judges to strictly enforce grand jury secrecy? Well, let's listen to that clip. Then everybody started freaking out Monday about a report in Politico.
Hey, human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
The report was about a sleeper case that could supposedly torpedo the entire Mueller investigation. Basically, the D.C. Court of Appeals will hear a case next month about a guy who was murdered decades ago, and the Justice Department wants to set precedent that judges don't have the freedom to release grand jury information that's usually kept secret. And a lot of folks are afraid this could be a problem for Mueller releasing his report because Congress would be deciding to publicize it, not a judge. However, chill out. First, we need to vote in November because a Democratic Congress would render this point completely moot. If not, I think a court case could easily create an exemption, not to mention denying an indictment would automatically trigger a report to Congress, the Gang of Eight. And above all, Mueller, I'm sure, has every base covered, so don't let this stress you out. So that case came up Friday, And the 3-judge panel issued no immediate decision and gave no definitive indication of where the court will come down on this decision. We'll keep you posted as promised. Also on Friday, the Wall Street Journal reported that ex-Trump lawyer John Dowd tried to help pay legal fees for Manafort and Gates before... Okay, so apparently he tried to divert money from the White House Legal Counsel Defense Fund, and it's sad that there's one, in addition to soliciting donors and putting up $25,000 out of his own pocket. This is John Dowd. In all cases, advisors close to Trump objected to Dowd's actions, saying it could appear aimed at stopping the 2 former aides from cooperating with investigators.
You think? Yeah.
At that time, I should say, Dowd was heading Trump's legal team in the Russia investigation, and this could prove to be a significant conflict of interest or even witness tampering. You know, it's kind of akin to dangling a pardon.
So even Trump was like, hey, you might not want to do that?
I don't think Trump said. I think it was Trump advisors.
Just Cohen or some. Yeah, got it.
Trump might not even have known, but
yeah. What does Trump know? and when did he learn it?
Or he wouldn't have understood.
Yeah, does he still know?
Are you smarter than a 5th grader? Not according to Mattis. We should do a game show.
I love it.
That would be a good skit. All right, but then Friday got interesting, you guys. As I was saying earlier, Rosenstein spent a couple hours at the White House Thursday night trying to talk Trump off the ledge about releasing unredacted Carter Page FISA application documents, right? Mm-hmm. Trump got the idea from folks at Fox News who seemingly wanted to set up a fight between Rosenstein and Trump, giving Trump a reason to fire him, as we've discussed. Hours after that failed, and Trump walked back his document release, agenda, and rather suspiciously, the New York Times published a story saying that Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, a.k.a. Snoop Dagg, had allegedly talked about wearing a wire around Trump in the week following the Comey firing to help recruit cabinet-level officials to invoke the 25th Amendment. Rosenstein immediately dismissed the reporting as false and said he does not now support the 25th Amendment. And it's interesting that he used the present tense. But as the day went on, the controversial story was refuted by both NBC and the Washington Post. They both say Rosenstein's comment about wearing a wire was a joke, according to a source that was present in that meeting. Also, according to the source, the White House had asked Rosenstein to make a second, stronger statement refuting the New York Times article. And he did. He came out and said, no, I didn't do this. And Trump had asked several of his aides late Friday night if he should fire Rosenstein.
That's crazy.
This could be big, you guys. And the contested reporting for the New York Times will no doubt give fodder to the Trump administration's allegation that there's a deep state, and it could give Trump pretext to fire Rosenstein. I'm more than convinced that the sources working with the New York Times were working on behalf of Trump. I know that sounds weird.
Actually, it doesn't watch Fahrenheit 11/9. It actually makes a lot of sense.
It's conjecture, but I'm right, I think. I have spent the last 3 years... No, I haven't. Trump has spent the last 3 years belittling and demeaning the failing New York Times as fake news. It'll be hard now for Trump to come out and support this article, and call it credible, but I wouldn't put it past him. Put some beans on this space. Mm-hmm. See, I mixed a little mayo.
I really like that. That was smooth.
Thank you. Finally, Saturday, NBC reports that a press advisor helping lead the Senate Judiciary Committee's response to a sexual assault allegation against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh has resigned in shame amid evidence he was fired from a previous political position because of sexual harassment allegations. He worked as an aide on Chuck Grassley's committee, and he was helping coordinate the GOP's bullying and misogynistic messaging about Dr. Blasey Ford. Explains a lot, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
We'll be right back. Hello, this is AG, and normally we'd be plugging in a mid-roll advertisement here. We're growing pretty rapidly, and the show is going to start filling its ad card, but you can avoid it all by becoming a patron and getting private feeds to ad-free episodes. There's 1 week left to buy in at $1 a month before we raise the minimum pledge to $3 on October 1st, so head over to patreon.com/MuellerSheWrote and sign up now. You'll be grandfathered in at the lower rate, and you won't have to hear this part of the show anymore. Personally, I like these little breaks because I'm a huge fan of the music, but that's just me. Thanks for supporting women in podcasting. All right, welcome back. Hot Notes. Welcome back. It's time for Hot Notes. This week, Jaleesa has an update on the money that was moved around just before and directly after the Trump Tower meeting. If you listened to our episode last week, according to BuzzFeed, investigators are focused on 2 bursts of banking activity, one 11 days after the Trump Tower meeting and one right after the election. According to documents, money was moved from Russia and Switzerland to the British Virgin Islands, Bangkok, and a small office park in New Jersey. Aris Agalarov used overseas accounts to filter over $20 million to himself and his son Amin and two of his douche buddies, and other people who attended the Trump Tower meeting, namely Kavaladze and Goldstone. These transactions came to light after bankers filed suspicious activity reports to the Treasury, which in turn shared them with the FBI, IRS, congressional committees, and Bob Mueller. Additionally, 13 days after the election, the Agalarov's bank account in Russia made 19 separate wire transfers to that New Jersey account belonging to Amin, and that account hadn't seen any activity since 2015. So Jaleesa has an update to this because there's more to the story now. Jaleesa, what do you have for us?
Oh, yeah. So BuzzFeed put out another article called "The Planners of the Trump Tower Meeting Moved Millions," and Mueller is now investigating. And so apparently documents show suspicious transfers that began 6 days before the infamous meeting. And on June 3rd, 2016, when Trump received the controversial email from Russia offering dirt on Hillary, what we learned is that on that very same day that the email was sent, another suspicious exchange occurred. So documents reviewed by BuzzFeed showed that $3.3 million began moving on June 3rd between Agalarov and Kavaladze, and some of it even appeared to be used to make payments on Agalarov's behalf. So this included over $700,000 in American Express charges, which is crazy to me.
Why would you use Amex? That's so old white guy.
Very true. I mean, I use Amex, but it's still like, that's a lot of charges.
Really? Because they're expensive. They charge a lot of fees. Maybe they got buddies at Amex.
But their attorney, Scott Balber, he said, quote, "What is suspicious or insidious about a billionaire who pays his employee in the U.S. to pay his business or domestic bills? This looks like complete nonsense."
What's suspicious about sending money through 8 different wash banks and shell companies to 2 guys who were at a meeting right before the meeting, right after the meeting? What's weird about that?
Yeah, what's the big deal?
You're being crazy.
Yeah. He basically went on to claim that this is just a witch hunt, and he accused the banks of over-reporting suspicious activity due to the Mueller investigation. So, classic lines. And none of these transactions came to light until the New York Times revealed the Trump Tower meeting in 2017.
Wait a minute. There was no Mueller investigation back then. So how can they say that the banks were reporting these SARs because of the Mueller investigation?
Exactly.
Back in June of 2016, there was no Mueller investigation.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's just, naturally, investigators began to look into this because they actually went back into all their history, and they went into everyone who attended the meeting. So it's just, it's standard protocol. And what they learned from this is that 3 different descriptions of the type of business they were running was given to 3 separate banks. So they used Citibank, Chase, and Morgan Stanley. And so they basically said that one of the businesses, it was a music promotion company. And then they also told another company or a bank that it was a transportation, equipment, and supplies merchant wholesaler. And then Agalarov told Chase it was a service provider for his real estate company. So they're giving all these different types of descriptions for the same company. And their own attorney said that they have 2 separate businesses, both under the same name, Corsi International. And they have one in California for their real estate, I guess, and then one in New York for their business and music.
Wait, it's Corsi? C-O-R-S-I?
Yes.
That's weird. That's the name of the guy, the Stonehenge guy who testified to the grand jury on Friday.
Oh.
That's weird.
Interesting, yeah. I wonder about that. But this whole is pretty confusing when you say it all like that, because this is the lack of transparency that basically made the bankers question the purpose of the funds in the first place. They were like, this is kind of hard to follow. We don't know what company is what. You say it's all the same, but there's all these different descriptions. And so it was just, naturally they flagged it. It was just really weird.
And they happened on the same day that Don Jr. sent that, if it's what you say, I love it email?
Yeah. Really weird.
So the money ended up with Kavaladze?
Yes, exactly.
From Agalarov.
Yeah. There's
who's Trump's buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And
nothing to see here.
Right. Yeah. So this is where it all actually comes down to Russia. So Kavaladze established more than 2,000 corporations in Delaware for Russian real estate brokers, and then he set up the U.S. bank accounts for them.
I wonder if Kavaladze had anything to do with Bayrock, and I wonder how many Trump condos he owns. I'm sure that information's out there. We can probably get it from Dworkin.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts. So basically, I think what it boils down to is it wasn't just 11 days after the meeting, but 6 days prior to the meeting, and on the day that Don Jr. sent that email, I love it. Mm-hmm. That's when money started moving around.
Yeah, very, very suspicious.
700,000, 400,000 from Agalarov to Kavaladze through 8,000 different companies.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. Interesting. Well, thank you for that update.
Of course.
It's amazing. We've gone from Trump has no financial ties to any Russian oligarchs to proof via banking suspicious activity reports that all this money exchanged hands, and Trump supporters are just sort of fine with that.
Yeah.
They're moving these are baby steps, like towards they're lubing the truth. It's going to get to the point where you're like, so what? He took a bunch of money from Russians. But
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird. Before I get to the next segment, guys, I want to issue a trigger warning. We could actually have an entire segment called Trigger Warning at this point. Honestly, there's so much harassment, assault, domestic violence, and attempted rape in this administration, and probably actual rape. That it's. I mean, why? I don't even get it. Like I said a couple episodes ago, who the fuck are these people?
Yeah, the best people, I guess.
Yep, they're the best. Today I want to talk about what happened with the negotiations this week between Katz, that's the lawyer for Christine Blasey Ford. That's the woman who came forward with attempted rape accusations against Kavanaugh. That's Trump's Supreme Court nominee, embattled, if you will. And Chuck Grassley, the Republican chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. What a great guy. Sunday, Dr. Ford came forward in an article. This is last Sunday, not yesterday, but the Sunday before. She came forward in an article published by the Washington Post saying, "It's me, it happened, here I am." By midweek, the Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee said that if she wanted to testify, she'd have to do it in front of the committee at the same table as her accuser on the following Monday. And the White House told the FBI not to investigate. Stand down, do not investigate, which is completely unprecedented. They always do. In the last two Supreme Court nominations, or judge nominations that have had sexual assault allegations, the FBI has investigated. Her lawyer responded saying she needed more time. Monday was not possible, as Dr. Ford had to move out of her house with her 2 teenagers and her husband because of repeated and invasive death threats against her and her family. And they asked again for an investigation, which, again, as I said, by precedent has always been afforded. The Senate said they could have a conference call. We'll have a conference call. And then Dr. Ford came back and said that she wanted Feinstein on the call and her staff, Grassley on the call and his staff, and her lawyers to be present. So they had that call Thursday night to discuss terms. Dr. Ford wanted Judge, that's Mark Judge, the other witness, she wanted him subpoenaed. She wanted to bring her own witnesses who recall the account.
Right.
And she wanted an investigation to be conducted and for Dr. Ford to testify after Judge Kavanaugh and not in the same room or at the same table. They also wanted to ensure her safety. Those were their demands. After the call, Grassley said they could have Wednesday for her to testify instead of Monday, but they would subpoena no witnesses. They would not allow any of her witnesses, and they would conduct no investigation, and Dr. Ford had to testify first, not second. And they gave her until 10 a.m. the next morning. He then pushed the deadline to 5 p.m. the next day, which was Friday, by the way, and then 10 p.m., And then he said through the media that if they don't get back by 10 p.m., she's too bad, so sad, we're voting on Monday, F you, forget the whole thing.
Wow.
At 9:30, Dr. Ford's lawyer, 9:30 p.m., Dr. Ford's lawyer sent the following letter to Chuck Grassley. And I'm going to read you this letter because it's pretty epic. I can't, I don't know. I think you've probably heard it. If you listen to us, you probably listen to Maddo, but I'm going to read it again. Dear Mrs. Wiley and Miss Davis, I'm writing in response to your emails from earlier today. I was stunned to see that the Judiciary Committee noticed Judge Kavanaugh's vote for Monday morning in the midst of our ongoing discussions regarding the terms and conditions under which Dr. Christine Blasey Ford could testify before the committee. Incredibly, you did so well before the 10 p.m. deadline you had arbitrarily imposed just hours before. The imposition of aggressive and artificial deadlines regarding the date and conditions of any hearing has created tremendous and unwarranted anxiety and stress on Dr. Ford. Your cavalier treatment of a sexual assault survivor who has been doing her best to cooperate with the committee is completely inappropriate. Yesterday, we had what I thought was a productive dialogue about the conditions Dr. Ford would find acceptable to be able to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee about her allegations of sexual assault involving Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Rather than continuing that dialogue, Senator Grassley today conveyed a counterproposal through the media, insisting that she appear for a hearing on a date I had expressly told you was not feasible for her. Hours after those media accounts first appeared, you sent me a response to the proposals that we had conveyed in good faith yesterday. You rejected a number of the proposals that are important to Dr. Ford to ensure that the process would be fair, including subpoenaing Mark Judge to testify. Instead, you spent much of your email making points that distorted the requests we had made and the sequence of events. It would be fruitless to review each of those misstatements, as it's now abundantly clear that regardless of the assurances Senator Grassley has made, you have been tasked with pressuring Dr. Ford to agree to conditions you find advantageous to the nominee, and also with denying Democratic members of the Senate Judiciary any input about how this hearing would proceed. When I urged you to include them in our discussions today, you rejected my request outright, accusing them of being the source of leaks. Even more disturbing, while you took almost a full day to consider our proposal, you demanded a 5 p.m. response to your proposal this evening. By email sent today at 4:01 p.m., I advised you that Dr. Ford had traveled to meet with the FBI for several hours about the death threats she had been receiving, and we would need until tomorrow to confer with her and be able to provide you with a well-considered response. Rather than allowing her the time she needs to respond, rather than allowing her the time she needs to respond to your take it or leave it demand you conveyed, you sent us an email at 5:47 p.m., which you again gave to the media first, insisting that we accept your invitation for a Wednesday hearing by 10 p.m. tonight. I now have learned that Senator Grassley has scheduled the committee's vote for this Monday. The 10 p.m. deadline is arbitrary. Its sole purpose is to bully Dr. Ford and deprive her of the ability to make a considered decision that has life-altering implications for her and her family. She has already been forced out of her home and continues to be subjected to harassment, hate mail, and death threats. Our modest request is that she be given an additional day to make her decision. Sincerely, Deborah Katz.
Wow.
So they asked for a day. So it's interesting. But then at 11 p.m., she sent that at 9:30. At 11 p.m., Grassley granted her another day, but not a full day. He only gave her till 2:30 today, or Saturday, I should say. This episode comes out Monday. We record Saturday, and he gave her till 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Saturday. And since we record before that deadline, we will have to include that response in next week's show. So that's the timeline of events, and I wanted to bring on someone I thought could speak to this week's Senate Judiciary shenanigans. Again, I want to issue a trigger warning because Rosie O'Donnell and I will be telling each other our Me Too stories. So we have a very special guest today to share her thoughts on this week's news. She's been in a ton of my favorite movies, including Sleepless in Seattle and A League of Their Own, my favorites. She's an actor, she's a comedian, she's an activist, a philanthropist, and an author. Please welcome Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie, welcome to Mueller, She Wrote.
Thanks for having me.
We really appreciate you being here. So, first of all, our podcast focuses mainly on the Mueller investigation, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Trump's nomination of Judge Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, not just as it relates to the Mueller investigation, but how it's playing out since Dr. Blasey Ford came forward with her attempted rape allegation back in 1983 with Judge Kavanaugh as the attacker. And Trump has mostly been silent on this matter this week. His handlers were sort of keeping him at bay until just this morning when he tweeted out that called her out by name and said that if her experience was as bad as she says, that she should have reported it immediately, or her loving parents should have reported it immediately with law enforcement. And now he's demanding that report. What are your initial thoughts on him abandoning his previously more measured tone and going just directly after her?
Well, that's more typical than how he was behaving for the last few days. I mean, I was stunned the first time I saw him saying, well, we need to hear from her and we need to hear from, and it needs to be fair and we want everyone to be happy. And I was like, who is this? Some zombie, infiltrated his body, and it's not him. But this is the true man, the one who attacks the victim today, the one who, is a misogynist beyond definition of that word. He brings it to a whole other category. And the only thing he would know about girls being raped or molested would be him in the Kavanaugh role. So I don't think he's somebody who has empathy, compassion, depth, understanding, basic human traits to relate to any woman as an equal, or as a human, or as someone demanding decency and dignity and respect. So he's a flawed human being with some pretty serious mental health issues that the country has chosen to ignore or forget, no matter how often he exhibits the signs.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And he's got 12 plus credible accusers of his own. So that's kind of where he's drawing his experience from, is not only deflecting those accusations, but paying people off, doing catch and kill stories with his buddy David Pecker at AMI and the Inquirer. And that's just kind of his background and his knowledge of this kind of situation comes from himself being a sexual assaulter.
Exactly. Being the predator, and that's who he is, and that's what he is, and that's what he's always been. How many billionaires do you know that own modeling agencies? Not very many. And the reason that he owned that modeling agency, I think, has still yet to be determined. What was the true reason for the Donald Trump modeling agency, and what happened to those women who were there? What happened to all those parties where allegedly Jeff Epstein and he were snorting coke off of young underage girls' butts? What happened to all of those facts that we conveniently leave out of the frame? And mainstream media has been doing this with Donald Trump since he decided to run. When he came down that escalator, they didn't. So here comes a man with 4 bankruptcies who's been accused 10 times of sexual abuse. He is now calling Mexicans rapists. Every time that he does one of his hate-filled rallies, they don't frame it. They just go, here he is, and it's a locked frame of 20 people behind him looking strange and onerous, and then him giving his absurdly ineloquent hate speech and everyone going crazy. Well, if the mainstream media led that story off with the facts, here we are in Detroit. It was supposed to be an outdoor venue, but there were not enough people. They moved it into a high school gymnasium. The camera is now locked off. There are 240 people here. Half of them have been paid. And here's what our hate-filled, borderline personality disorder president is about to say. Then everybody, when they ingest the hatred, they have to ingest the frame in which it lives. And that's what's missing, I think, with the whole Donald Trump false equivalence from the beginning.
Yeah, you're right. The context is just completely missing from that, and it's important that everybody see him through that frame, and also
right, because when Obama spoke the other day, they were quick to say how many people were there. How many people were at the event? And there are all these statistics that were up for when Obama spoke, and when Trump speaks, there's none.
Yeah, I don't know how he gets away with that.
I don't either, but he's been doing it his whole life, and it's no wonder that somebody with this many crosshairs on him in terms of his legal jeopardy, that he would still feel omnipotent. You can tell by, that's how you know the level of his mental illness, that he doesn't even seem to have an awareness of how much trouble he's in.
Yeah, no, that's true. And this tweet coming out this morning it can be really triggering for a lot of women around the country, because not reporting your assault or your attempted rape is very common, especially if you're 15. And it's really...
Yeah, now how old are you?
I'm 44.
Okay, I'm 56. I had an incident like this, not involving me, but involving another girl in high school, and it was the football players. And I know all their names, and I see all their faces, and I see them on Facebook, and I know a couple of them are lawyers. But all these boys that called down to the principal's office because of what happened with one girl on the football field where there was liquor involved, and 10 football players from the varsity team and a 7th grader. And I remember that story vividly. And if she ever wanted to press charges against those boys, I would be able to testify and say, oh, I remember what was going on in the school. All the boys were taken, and they would call her a whore, and she would have her books very close to her chest, her head down as she walked through the hallways. Every high school has a story like this. And 15-year-old girls are not able emotionally, intellectually to process that kind of trauma, never mind from an upperclassman. Never mind from an upperclassman, rich, preppy kid who goes to the high, where the chosen few prep school, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of layers involved in this. I don't know what school the accuser went to. I don't know, the setup of the neighborhood, but I guarantee there are people from both of the high schools where the boys went to the prep school and where she went that had heard that this occurred. Yeah, this is not a very uncommon thing.
No, and for me, I was 21 in the military, and when I tried to report, I was told that if I filed a false report, I'd be kicked out. I'd be charged with adultery because my attacker was married. I would lose my rank, lose my rate. I could be dishonorably discharged, lose my signing bonus, lose my benefits. And it's not just that traumatization, but years later when I, because of complications with PTS, and I tried to file a claim with the VA, they pulled a Donald Trump. They said, you don't have any reports, you didn't report it, And so therefore it didn't happen. And eventually it went through. I got some help with retired Brigadier General Allison Hickey, who had seen me in a movie called The Invisible War. And she got me my exam, and they eventually at least, admitted what happened, and I got my claim adjudicated. But, not everybody gets to be in a movie. So there's thousands and thousands of other women.
Exactly. But you spoke for so many in that movie. That was a riveting documentary. And right as my son was considering becoming a Marine, which he now is, I made him sit down and watch that documentary with me after I saw it, to let him know a little bit of the culture that he was entering into. And if anything else, to be a watchman and the protector, but to know going in that this is what's happening, I mean, they don't tell kids signing up. Nobody mentioned that to him when he was at the Marine recruiting station. Oh, by the way, the sexual assault cases in the armed forces are extraordinarily high, higher than the percentage anywhere. No one tells anyone that. No one, the same way no one told all the truths about Trump that were so easy to find. They were easy to find in 2006 when I said them on The View, and he went crazy. He went crazy because I dared to say the truth. I, a woman, a gay woman who doesn't ascribe to his ideals of what a woman should be, was daring to call him on his shit. Well, everything I said was true. He said he was going to sue me, but he didn't sue me because you can't sue someone for telling the truth.
That's correct.
And then what he did was, abuse and insult me. Say I was fat, that I was gay, that I was a degenerate, that I was low class, he tried to change the narrative that America has of me in my life and career into something that fits his narrative, the way he does to everyone we see now, right? The way he does to Comey, and he does to leaders Justin Trudeau, of all people. I mean, he does it to everyone, to LeBron James. He tries to change the public narrative, and he has a bully pulpit. And with the media, the fourth estate, not doing their job of holding up their end of questioning and checking him, he's run amok. He's like a little 2-year-old having a tantrum. And as the mother of 5, I find it very, very hard to watch. It's like he's a baby having a tantrum, And I, too, was sexually abused as a child. It was, the abuser was the one who was supposed to take care of me. I was a child. He was the adult. And so, then you have that situation, and so many children who were abused, I think, are re-traumatized by Donald Trump being the president. Here's a guy who has pretty much admitted that he's a sexual abuser, and he's still walking around as if he's untouchable, and so far he has been. That there are that many women with that many complaints, and he's president of the United States of America.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, I feel really bad for all the veterans, not just females, but males too, that have experienced sexual assault, having to walk in the VA, and his photo is right there, really big at the entrance. And it's just, it's awful. It's horrible. I agree with you.
It's traumatizing is what it is. It re-traumatizes people. If you come from a house where the father is abusive and is in control and is telling you that, there's nothing you can do to get away from me. That's sort of what parents do when they have a sick kind of untreated mental health problem. And that's what happens. Where do you go when you're a kid who needs a ride to the police station to tell on the person in the house who's abusing you? It's so complicated, and he is so dumb. Like, he's one of the stupidest people you ever hear speak. Like, I can't even comprehend the fact that he can put a sentence together like, there's a lot of rain in regards to the water. Yeah. What? Like, I mean, honestly, I have a 5.5-year-old and she speaks better than he does. It's embarrassing. And I heard George Bush recently speaking, and I was like, God, remember when I was saying to myself how dumb he is and how stupid, he sounded like a Nobel laureate. Yeah. Compared to Trump, what we're used to, he actually conjugated verbs and had multiple syllables in some of them. Like, it was really shocking how low we've gone with this guy at the helm. And I can't wait till the last indictments come, and that'll be his family. And then I think we're going to see, sadly, him throw his own kids under the bus. And maybe then America will wake up.
Yeah, and he already kind of did when he said that he dictated that Don Jr. response to the press on Air Force One. But yeah, you're right. It's just, it's really weird when you're wistfully reminiscent about Bush.
Yes, and you look at, and I looked at him and I actually had a moment of, oh, there he is. Like, we're going to be okay. And I thought, him?
Yeah.
He's the one who's providing me with solace now? But yes, he is. And this madness, this mayhem, this insanity, this is not America. And we are really on the precipice of disaster. And November 6th, if we don't vote, we're going to lose it and lose democracy. And that's going to be it. And the world will be forever changed, you know. So I'm a little concerned that nothing has been done since 2016 when they obviously changed some votes in there as well. So I wondered if the cockiness and the optimism that all of these Republicans seem to feel in light of such damning evidence and polls that say there'll be a blue tsunami, that they're still sort of walking around half-cocked, you know. I'm like, and what is that about? Because they know the fix is in. Nothing's been done since 2016. Nothing's been done with evidence and all of these ballot polling places about the, you know, 2 extra votes per precinct. You know, that's not that hard to do computer-wise. And I don't know. I just feel like the fix is in. It hasn't been changed. No, nothing has been done. It's not like the day after he got elected, he said, well, this is insane. Now let's get on Russia. Russia is not going to ever put a president in or decide who they want. Let's put an investigation. No, he didn't do that because he knew he would be telling on himself.
Yeah, and he would also lose those fake votes.
Exactly. He would lose everything. And I'm hoping, and everyone says, you know, you shouldn't say this. This isn't the party line. I'm like, I'm not really in a party. I'm just a person trying to get through this insanity. And I think everything, if it's proven that Russia did help get him in, and he is an illegitimate president in every capacity, every single executive order and every single appointment he's made has to be reversed. And everyone's like, well, that's impossible. You can't get Garland put on the Supreme Court. Well, no, maybe I can't get him put on, or we can't, but maybe we can get Gorsuch removed. And we can, you know, hopefully Kavanaugh will not go through. That's what I'm, you know, spending my nights thinking, that goodness will prevail and this man will not be put through. A man who was not even on his list of potential Supreme Court nominees until the Mueller investigation.
That's exactly right.
You know, then that's right. So,
yeah.
You know, he's such a blatantly bad criminal. If this were a movie, you know, you would be like, oh, God, give me a break. All this evidence and the guy's still in there. This is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. And until Mueller drops those last indictments, we're all waiting on pins and needles.
Yeah, it's like the world's dumbest criminals, where they put the paper bag over their head but forget to cut out eye holes. And, you know.
Exactly.
Run roughshod all over the store.
That's what it's like. It's like the stupidest people running the country, and they don't know how to get away with any. He can't even keep his shit together for 1 week. They told him, don't fuck this up, okay? You've got like 20 women who are accusing you of doing this to them. Do not say anything about that woman. Just keep your mouth shut. And he couldn't even do it for a week.
No, he has no self-control.
He has no self-control. He has no discipline.
Let me ask you about this. Recently, Senators Blumenthal, Leahy, and Doug Jones, they wrote this letter to Don McGahn, the White House counsel, who's seemingly cooperating with prosecutors. 30 hours or something of testimony. They asked him specifically if he or they or the White House knew about these allegations before they became public and had that letter of 65 women all prepared, because they put that together in like 36 hours, presumably. But and then also that in combination with Kavanaugh parading out this gaggle of 15-year-old girls that he coaches during his hearing, it just seems to me like they were expecting this to come out. Does it seem to you like that?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it seems like they knew it, they were prepared, but they were going anyway. And it's only one reason, because, you know, this is the guy who's going to let Trump get out of jail free for everything he did, and he's pretty much said so. And so that's the guy that Trump needs to be. If he loses this, he knows he's going to jail, he's doomed. He knows he's not going to get another one to a point before he gets, you know, 50 days away until we have the election. And you know, I think we're going to take the House, even though I'm a registered independent. I'm no longer a Democrat. I haven't been one since the Iraq War. But I think we, meaning sound-minded people, will take back the House. And I'm hopeful for the Senate, but I'm sure I think about the House and that people are going to show up. You have to believe in America and why and who and what we are and what we stood for 200 years, and not just focus myopically on this one anomaly. He is not the norm. He is not status quo. He is the cancer that he was talking about. He was cutting out the cancer of the FBI. Well, the cancer is him. It is him.
Yeah.
And everyone around him and everyone that, and there was a time, mind you, 16, 18 months ago, where I had mild compassion for the children because I thought, imagine growing up under his tutelage, even though he supposedly was never there, and it was the housekeepers and the wives that took care of the children, and he had very little to do with their upbringing, apparently. But imagine being raised by that man, the man who has the power to sort of corrupt and confuse and trick an entire audience. What kind of mental health state are his children in to be raised by him? To see him sort of get away with such criminal, violent acts, all I don't know. They must be tortured as well.
Yeah,
But I hope they work it out with the prison psychiatrist. So I'm not really.
Oh, they're going to jail for sure.
I know. I can't wait. Believe me, I'm gonna have the biggest party.
And here's another thing too. They're demanding that Kavanaugh. They've specifically asked for an outside lawyer, presumably a woman, to come in and question Dr. Blasey Ford. And that seems to me that for two reasons. First of all, there's no women on the GOP side of the Senate Judiciary. And also, I don't think any of them want to go up, and grill a sexual assault survivor or attempted sexual assault survivor so close to an election. The optics of that have to be horrible. So they're chickening out and hiring a female.
Yeah, that's one thing. And they don't want to pull the tapes of Hatch and Grassley attacking Anita Hill, and Joe Biden himself wasn't exactly, today he sort of said, oh, I knew in 91. I haven't learned now. I knew. Well, you didn't act like you knew.
Right.
Nobody did. He would have had to be, 20 years ahead of where the culture is, I mean, it's interesting to see these people going down that you never thought would go down, like Harvey Weinstein and Les Moonves and these sort of titans of television, which is my industry, right? Everybody has it in their own industry. You see these people fall that you think never really could. And
yeah, we have it in comedy.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it's so funny because I've been out of comedy stand-up long enough to not know the players in this. People were asking me, what do you think of Louis C.K.? I've never met him. I don't know him. I didn't work clubs with him. But there was a stand-up comic that I worked many clubs with named Vince Champ, who was in jail for serial rape. And the way they found it out was all his bookings coincided with all where the college rapes were. And so I was in a comedy condo with this guy many, many times,
The Comedy Store condo?
No, just around the country when I did stand-up all over the country.
Right.
He was the middle act and I would be the opener. So we'd be in Just for Laughs in Utah or something, or the Improv in Arizona, someplace like that. But yeah, that's really interesting what happened within the comedy world. And then I hear that Louis C.K. went and did stand-up and just didn't mention anything.
Yeah, he just came back like nothing happened.
Yeah, like it was another Thursday.
And they're allowed to do that.
Yeah, and that's what Trump's been allowed to get away with, too. We're just not going to talk about the illegal, horrible, corrupt things that I've done, and we're going to pretend like it didn't happen.
Yep.
Going on my merry way. And, thankfully for the Me Too and for the women who were brave enough to stand up and speak out, people are being held accountable, at least minimally. And we have to start it minimally because we were at zero for so long.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on today and talking to me about this, and thanks for sharing your stories. Everybody, you can catch Rosie on the season 2 premiere of SMILF in January on Showtime, or you can go see her with Randy Rainbow when is it, Saturday, October 6th at the Paramount of Huntington on Long Island?
Yes, where I grew up, my hometown. I'm going to go open for Randy Rainbow. I can't wait.
I love Randy Rainbow. Rosie, thanks so much for coming on Mueller, She Wrote.
Thank you.
I want everyone to know that we're here for you if you want to talk. Send us your stories on Twitter at Mueller, She Wrote. And thanks to everyone for all your support about my story that I shared on Twitter. If there's one silver lining to all this, it's that we've found each other. That, and an unintended byproduct of holding women down, has made us resilient, resourceful, and tenacious, and we are ready to lead. We'll be right back. Thanks for listening to Mueller, She Wrote. The she in Mueller, She Wrote is no accident. Did you know we are 100% women-owned and operated? every single person that helps make this podcast possible identifies as a woman. Our creative and web design, our engineer and producers, our editors and digital media manager, our agent, our ad execs, our merchandising manager, and even the postal service clerk that helps me with shipping in our P.O. box. All women and all LGBTQ plus allies. We will continue to employ and partner with women as our podcast grows, but we could use your help. Please support women in podcasting by visiting MuellerSheWrote.com and become a patron today. All right, are you ready for the Fantasy Indictment League?
Yeah.
All right, this week has been full up with news about the Kavanaugh, but we cannot forget about Cohen cooperating, and Manafort is now also cooperating. So I'm sticking with my team this week. That's Kushner, dad and son, Stone, Jr., and Ivanka. Jaleesa, who you got?
I got a Junior, Kushner, Cohen.
I think you had Butina last time.
I did, and then I had a rando.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
You're going to stick with that?
I'm going to stick with it.
All right, cool. If you want to play in the league, become a patron, then head to the Friends of Justice page on Facebook and look for the pinned announcement. That's where you'll reply with your 5 picks. This is not gambling. I think there's 1 week left to lock in at $1 a month to become a patron, and you get to keep that rate even though we're going to raise them on October 1st, so check that out. I get a lot of folks asking where to get the show notes, my personal show notes. Those come in the weekly newsletter that Jordan creates. It's a really amazing newsletter with infographics, links to all the articles in my show notes, and it's sent out when you to the email you sign up with when you sign up for Patreon. It comes out Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Check your junk if you're not getting it. Not your junk, but your
promotions on email or social. They have weird tabs now. Gmail's weird.
Yeah, so check your junk. All right, it's time for Sabotage. Big last-minute news this week, as we have just learned that KT McFarland, that's Trump's former deputy national security advisor, number 2 to Michael Flynn, who is now was serving as the U.S. ambassador to Singapore, has revised her statement to investigators saying that Flynn was talking about sanctions when he spoke to Kislyak in December 2016 and did tell her about it. This change came after Michael Flynn began cooperating. So basically in the summer of 2017, KT McFarland had denied ever talking to Flynn about any talks about sanctions during the transition. Didn't happen. Then Mueller brought her back after Flynn gave his proffer and said, "You want to tell me again if you discuss sanctions? You want to tell me one more time? You want to be careful about your answer this time? I'm Bob Mueller. You want to fucking tell me what happened?" It must be so cool to be him.
Oh,
Just be like, "Who care to revise your bullshit story?" At which point she walked back her previous lie. And it's a lie. I'm not mainstream media. I'm not going to call it a misled or it's a lie.
Yeah, they give it such weird words.
They're so afraid of the lie
falsehood.
word. People familiar with the matter say that McFarland was able to convince the FBI that she had not intentionally misled them. But McFarland had said her memory was clear about the two never having discussed sanctions. She gave very specific details when she lied to the FBI, very specific lies. The event that mostly she lied about was the call Flynn made to Kislyak telling him to stand down and not respond to U.S. sanctions placed by Obama. Like, "Don't worry, we got your back, bro, don't respond." And then Russia didn't respond, and Trump was like, "Very smart, Putin, very smart for not responding." So, like, he didn't know. But in this testimony that we have, there's no direct evidence that McFarland, even though she's walking back her story, informed Trump or anyone else. This is just kind of her walking back her lie. And her lie matched public statements from Sean Spicer, who insisted Flynn and Kislyak spoke before sanctions were put in place. So all that being said, you want to change your indictment draft?
Nice.
Because I'm thinking, like, I was going to add McFarland until I read the reporting said that the FBI and the Mueller investigation was kind of okay with her walking it back, but she lied.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So this is hot. I'm gonna throw her in instead of my rando.
All right.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I'm going to keep her out. I don't think she's a target.
Really? What about a plea deal?
Yeah, she could do a plea deal. Do you want to do a plea deal?
I'm going for a plea deal, yeah.
A KT McFarland plea deal?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's your right.
Because Rando would be nice, but like she seems likely, I think.
Yeah, and she's 5 points too.
Yeah.
So actually, yeah, no, she's a cabinet member. I think they get even more points.
And she's scorned,
or not a cabinet member. She's deputy. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'll find out exactly what she's worth.
Yeah.
That sounds horrible. We're pricing humans.
You know what the
points.
thing is? It makes me think about Orange Is the New Black this season when they have the inmates on not inmate indictment league, just an inmate fantasy league, and they're just like making them fight each other, and they're doing points for like murder and things. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I haven't seen the new season yet.
Right. So I mean, this is us just not betting, but like these people. Okay, we got to do a mini-sode on like the good nature of our fantasy league. Because we're not doing anything to them. We're not making them commit these crimes.
No, this is just like an office pool.
Yeah.
People get hurt in the NFL all the time, and these people are effing criminals, and F them in the A with a D. So
yeah, that's what it all comes down to.
They all conspired to steal an election and F up our lives. So
right. I don't want them murdered or anything. I just want them to go to jail.
No, I don't wish physical harm on them. I just want justice, the actual justice that comes with being found guilty and going to jail or serving your time or cooperating or
most civilians.
However it works.
Yeah, it happens to us. We're not above the law. This is crazy.
They should not be either. All right, time for Q&A. No song.
Oh man, we have so many suggestions too. People are like, "Hey, do this one, do that one."
Really? We may pick one. Maybe stick it in.
You know what? If our fans are musicians, we could be like, make a song and we'll showcase it or something.
That sounds like maybe that's a good idea. Q&A.
Funky.
I used to use Mailbag Day from Cartoon Planet, but
we'll figure something out.
Mail is. It's evolved. All right, at Big Politics Nerd asked if Toad from Mario will sue for defamation. I don't think so. He should, but not at this point. At Skavchok, Skavchok, wants to know if the Democrats have the authority to investigate Kavanaugh if they win either both Senate or House, and if the investigation concluded with, let's say, lying under oath, can his appointment be recalled or can he be impeached? What's the process for impeachment? Yes, it's been said by at least Sheldon Whitehouse, not the White House, but the Democratic senator named Whitehouse. That'd be funny if he ran for president.
It would be. Mr. Whitehouse.
In the White House, yeah. He has said, we're going to do that. We're going to get the gavels. They call it that. We're getting the gavels and we're going to investigate this. And here's the thing. If the investigation is concluded, first of all, it's harder for the bicameral House and Senate to, they don't do criminal investigations. They do investigations for public purposes. Then they make criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. If the Department of Justice is still being run by Trump and a Trump lackey, they could suppress those requests and not follow up on them. So there's that we have to worry about. And then, yes, you can impeach a judge, but impeachment is hard. You need 2/3 of the Senate. We aren't going to have anything close to that. And you can't just recall an appointment of a judge. You have to actually criminally investigate him. However, I do believe that the FBI and the DOJ, if it was found that there was enough evidence to do a criminal investigation into him, that they would do that. And he could step down. He could resign as justice.
From the pressure, yeah.
That's feasible.
We got to keep the pressure on pretty much after the midterms. Even if we flip it, which would be incredible. Not a guarantee.
And we can't let up. You're right. We have to keep doing it. And all of this week, you guys have to keep calling Murkowski and Collins and Sass and all the people that you would normally call to say, just vote no. We still have to try to get them to vote no. Because McConnell has said, we're going to plow through this. We're going to cram it through. He said that.
Yeah. Now I have a question. We could call too, right? Like, we're not in these states, but like, is that something that people do? Is they call from other states and like, hey, I'm a concerned American citizen, and I think because I'm going to do that.
Sometimes they don't take the messages or they don't listen, but
it's worth a try, right?
Yeah, it's worth jamming up their phones, tweet at them, everything.
So, sweet, everybody, please.
Yes. All right. Let's see. At Elsie Piano wants to know if she has her timeline correct. First of all, the GOP knew about Dr. Blasey Ford in July. Kavanaugh fessed up. Ed Whelan hired a PR firm to discredit her after he snooped at her LinkedIn account. Then she contacted the FBI because she saw she'd been snooped. Is that correct? So let me talk to you about who Ed Whelan is. He's this asshole who has been trying to set up this disinformation campaign saying that it wasn't Kavanaugh. She was probably assaulted, but it is probably someone who looks just like him.
Wow.
And she responded saying, nope, I know that guy. I know them both. It's not him. It's definitely him. I knew them both. I socialized with them both. I would not mix them up, but thanks for that shit.
Yeah.
And then he immediately apologized and walked back. Ed Whelan did. He walked us all back because he named the other guy in a Twitter thread.
Yeah.
So he's got mud all over his face now.
Most assaults happen with someone, too, like the victim.
Of course.
Yeah.
But so he had hired a PR firm back in July. This is the theory. Because they had the documents in July. They knew about it in July. That's why Senators Blumenthal, Leahy, and Doug Jones wrote a letter saying, when did you know about this, McGahn? And when did you start preparing that letter of 65 people? And me asking, why did you parade a bunch of 15-year-old girls around into your hearing?
Yeah. That was weird before we knew what happened.
It was. And we brought that up too. Like, what? That's the weirdest, creepiest thing, to parade a bunch of little girls out in your hearing. And so then he hired this PR firm to discredit her back in July, and he went in and looked at her LinkedIn account, and because she has the kind of LinkedIn subscription, she's really into it, I guess.
Yeah.
That notifies you when people look at your account.
Interesting, yeah.
And it said he went in before she went public with this information, so they knew ahead of time.
They were snooping around.
I'm really interested to see how McGahn
totally
responds to that. Who did you know? What did you know? When did you know it? Because if this has been a setup and a discreditation effort since July, that's interesting.
That is very interesting.
And are there any other allegations he has to worry about? That's also interesting.
Yeah, I don't want to see this investigation just go away. It seems like there's a lot going on.
At Nuance Unites asked, how do we open a dialogue on issues like sexual assault when we as men do not necessarily know what women have experienced but are trying to be part of the solution? I often see them met with, quote, you can't understand, or lumped in as part of the problem. How do you start a dialogue? I think you just did.
Yeah. Damn. Nailed it.
I think if you want to, I think probably, at least for me, and I can only speak for me, a good way to look at this is kind of a common thing that happens when couples argue is when I want to tell you about something and you want to try to fix it and tell me what I could have done better, should have done better, or how to fix it. Let me do this, let me do that, when all we really want you to do is listen.
Yeah, at least just at first listen. And I get the intention to want to have a solution. Some people are like, well, what do you want from this? Like,
well, here's the solution. Don't tell us what the solution is. The solution is go police your fucking fellow dudes.
Yes, exactly. It usually comes down to that. They're like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, well, you can't change what has happened to people, but we can say don't do it anymore. And also you yourself don't do it. If you're not a part of the problem, keep not being a part of the problem.
There
and
you go.
Call out other people that
call it out.
Problem, yeah.
Call it out when you see it. Put the blame on the assaulters, and of course, this doesn't just apply to women that are victims. Men are victims too.
Absolutely.
But for the most part,
binary. Yeah.
For the most part, 10 times more women experience assault.
Totally. Yeah.
And so, if you're a man, I would just recommend listening, saying that sucks, lending emotional support, and then not trying to have a solution for the woman, but go out and solve it for the dudes that are doing it. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because when you try to tell a woman what the solution is, you're trying to tell the victim what to do.
Non-victim splaining.
We shouldn't have to do anything differently to not be raped. It should go, or tried or attempted or whatever. It should go on the assaulter. It should go on the perpetrator. So that would be my recommendation. But you did a good job opening up the dialogue right there. I think that tweet got a lot of really positive responses from women saying, thank you for asking. No one's ever asked us before.
Yeah.
They've just kind of inserted themselves, no pun intended, and tried to say what they think the solution is.
Right.
And that's probably not the best way to go about it. At Lube the Truth says, given what we know about Dana
I'm sorry. That's all right. A lot of people mispronounce it, but it sounds just the way it's spelled. H-F-U-H-R-U-H-U-R-R.
Haha, I love that movie. Given what we know about Rohrabacher, I don't know much about his opponent, Harley Rauda. It would be interesting to hear a summary. Honestly, all you need to know about him is that he's running against Rohrabacher. That's it.
Yeah, that's the whole platform right there.
But
I'm
for
not
reals,
Robert Barker.
For reals, I know Democrats are like, we have to run for something, not against something. I think that's bullshit. Run against these assholes.
Yeah.
But for reals, he's a lot like Beto, okay? He wants universal pre-K, gun reform, specifically to ban the boyfriend loophole, preventing abusers from being able to buy guns, and to ban assault-style weapons and high-capacity magazines.
Yeah.
He's for Medicare for all. He wants to get money out of politics, and he's super pro-environment. So
yeah, I don't like. I'm starting to kind of get into the whole. We should stop trying to be so nice, because I feel like even as an individual, I have this problem. It's like you can have good intentions, and the whole idea is that I'm referring to. You just mentioned we can't just be against something; we have to be for something. I think you can be both and be on the right side of things, right?
And mad at you can be against Nazis.
Yeah, and that's being for
I figured
the great things.
The people trying to run against the Nazis weren't like, we can't just be against the Nazis. We got to be for something, you guys.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's to that level. We're on step 7 of the 10 steps to an autocracy.
Look where playing nice has got us with Nazis.
Right.
And let's take a stance.
And Maddow said, I think one of her quotes this week, and this is just off the top of my head, so forgive me. I know you listen, Rachel, so forgive me if I'm wrong. But you were like, oh, and now actually the quote has completely left my mind. What were we just talking about?
Nazis.
Nazis and running for and against something. Oh, she goes, well, where do we draw the line between taking the high road and being a patsy?
Exactly.
Being a doormat.
An enabler.
Not an enabler, not even, I wouldn't go enabler.
Just a doormat.
Just a doormat.
That's a good, word for it. I feel like it's, at this point, it's like they said with socialism, they're making it seem like that's so far left, but what if it's just that, like, that's where we are, like, with a lot of issues liberally, and we're trying to get the politicians to move a little closer.
Well,
like,
and we're pretty good at doing that, pushing people to the left. But also, lesson 1 is socialism. It does not mean no capitalism.
Exactly.
And so stop that. Like I've seen serious questions, like serious guys. No homo. I don't know why they say that, but why would you want socialism and not capitalism? I'm like, it's not
mutually exclusive.
One or the other, right? It's not mutually exclusive. Democratic socialists want capitalism.
I like the idea of being able to make money. I just don't like the money in politics and things like that.
We don't want the kind of socialism that's happening in Venezuela or Cuba or
exactly.
We don't. That's not what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about not giving tax breaks to individual rich dudes and putting that back in the system so that we can all have programs like Social Security, which we've had forever, by the way.
Yeah, healthcare for all. I mean, these are things that are. It seems like they
Medicare.
College education for everyone. This is crazy that this become issues that make you seem like you're a terrorist to some people. Like I hear people say, like, "Oh, you're a commie." I'm like,
no, man, I don't want to take the common man's money. I want to give tax breaks to the common man. Yes. I want to tax the wealthy because they're sitting on zillions of effing dollars.
Exactly.
And use that for the betterment of the country.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we get a whole other show about that.
Yeah, that's true.
At Good Little Tiger wants to know what we think happened in May 2017 when Snoop Dogg Rosenstein wrote the letter regarding Comey. She thinks, I don't know if Good Little Tiger, how they identify. They think he was duped by Trumpy in some way and was caught out. They do not believe he knew that the Comey memo would be used to fire him. I agree 100%. I think he wrote the memo because that's how he felt about what happened with the Comey and how Comey handled the Hillary email investigation by coming out and reopening it and unclosing it and not coordinating with the Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General at the time, acting kind of rogue, being a tall, roguey guy. So Rosenstein wrote that memo, and he was completely caught unawares that Trump was going to use it as a reason to fire Comey.
Right.
And then he blew his whole effing cover by going on Lester Holt and saying, Russia was on my mind.
Idiot.
Yeah, he is. At Nashaz12 wants to know if Comey was a better kisser than my husband.
Oh.
He was tall.
We should ask Trump that infamous picture of them.
They did kiss. They were kissies. Basically, what's happening is I had a dream.
Oh, that's right.
I made out with Comey.
I forgot about that.
And he was wearing a plaid blazer and those giant shoes that he has. Ooh. That's nice.
I love how realistic those make-out dreams can be.
They can, right?
Virtual reality, man. I love it.
It's weird. There's the two super realistic things are when they're make-out dreams or when you somehow are bleeding.
Oh, that's the downside.
And you could actually taste the blood in your mouth.
Oh, no.
That's super realistic
I haven't
for me.
had that dream.
Uber realistic. Let's see. At Welcome to the Party Pal. That's WLCM, the number 2, THEPRTYPAL, also known as Jam Master Ray. Wants to know if Snoop Dogg will have his job this time next week, or will we all be calling in sick to March?
Oh.
I don't know. This is a pretty good reason for Trump to fire Rosenstein. I feel like if he's going to do it, it would have happened, but his advisors are holding him down, saying, no, no, no. I'm sure there's not one person, except for Hannity probably, that's trying to tell him to do that.
It'd be the worst timing.
And that could be conspiracy to obstruct justice, by the way, if that does happen.
All those swing elections, I think, would go so blue if Trump did that.
Yeah, they could.
So many, I think,
because
independence.
We all kind of realize that the firing Rosenstein is the same as firing Mueller.
Exactly.
And it is. At Sorrell Woods asked if Cohen was testifying before a federal grand jury Friday or if that was something else. That was Corsi. That's who I was mentioning, one of the Roger Stonehenge gang. He was testifying this Friday. We haven't heard any news about what he testified about, but his testimony is done. Alt White House Kitchen asked, mashed potatoes or baked? It depends on the dish. If I'm having steak, I got to go baked.
Yeah, if I'm going with chicken, though, like barbecue chicken, mashed.
Yeah, or meatloaf, mashed.
Ooh.
For sure. Baked potato and meatloaf is just not right.
True.
So it really depends on the main entree. If you're a vegetarian, then you just pick the potato that you like. Then put some vegetables near
baked beans or mashed beans?
Refried beans. Mashed beans.
Gross.
Beans, baked or mashed. Beans. And finally, at Catherine Stevie on Twitter asked, what is the best antidote you have found to the crushing despair that is the news in the age of Trump?
Ooh, okay. I would say
this podcast.
Aw, very cute and conceited. I agree. That's my second choice. This podcast has been my personal, and I'm sure, all of ours to some degree, inspiration for keeping up, because it's overwhelming. But
not keeping up. How the antidote for the crushing despair.
Right. Yeah. So that too. Yeah. It makes me just feel like I'm doing something that is productive, and it's like I'm trying to be active and a person that's aware of what's going on and trying to think of how to help it. But I would say also the movie Fahrenheit 11/9. I really feel like he should pay us for all this.
I think that might
promotion.
also bring you crushing despair.
It's my antidote. That's the question, right? What's the solution? What makes us feel better about the question?
What makes you happy in these sad times?
These things about people creating content that will not just document what's happening, because we're watching these things kind of fall apart in real time.
Okay, so kind of the resistance.
The resistance. Yeah, there you go. The whole resistance. But I didn't want to be too meta, so I'm specifically the media, people that independent producers, independent journalists, independent, all kinds of people that are engaging on Twitter in ways. I guess that's the resistance. Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah, and when I say the podcast, I mean laughter. I mean, not me making the podcast,
right,
but people who listen to it.
Yeah,
and maybe instead of having a being really depressed about it, you go and make fantasy
jokes
indictment
about
picks,
it.
or you laugh at jokes about it, or you laugh at the fact that we call him Snoop Dogg, or
absolutely,
or the reservoir of Twas,
I love the comedy. It's the best part. I also love the fact that even when the jokes stop, it's it's real. We're not when I left the theater, I was just that wasn't just a movie that I escaped from because life was crazy. That was a movie about how life is crazy and it's still crazy. And I'm trying to make it less crazy.
Yeah. Well,
so that feels good. Everybody that's engaging, everybody that's resisting, they're all trying to make it a little less crazy, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that when we had Dan Pfeiffer from Pod Save America on the show, and he talked about that wave of youth that's going to wash this country clean.
Absolutely. The Parkland kids, they're in everyone. I mean, all those youth kids, but they're in the movie too, and it's just he really Michael Moore breaks it down. I wish we could have him on the pod.
We can try to reach out to
him. He's just got.
Anybody know Michael Moore? Let us know.
Let us know. Please tweet him, guys. If you guys could do anything for a tweet storm, that's the.
Yeah, or if you have his publicist contact information, email it to us at hello@MuellerSheWrote, and we'll see if we can reach out to him. But
nice.
Yeah, I definitely think that the camaraderie of the resistance
It's amazing.
Especially women. And that's not saying that I don't welcome our male allies. I absolutely do.
I think they get it. I think they know that men are a given.
There are super amazing dudes out there.
They're great men, yeah.
They're doing really hard work. So
yeah, I think women and just like we're fighting for a reason. We're not fighting for nothing, like they get it. Guys get it.
Yeah.
Some guys.
Most guys that I come across.
Exactly. Most guys I know. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys for supporting us. We appreciate it. I've been AG.
I've been Jaleesa Johnson.
And this is Mueller, She Wrote. Mueller, She Wrote is produced and engineered by AG with editing and logo design by Jaleesa Johnson. Market consulting by Amanda Reeder at Unicorn Creative. Our digital media director and subscriber managers are Jordan Coburn and Sarah Hirschberger Valencia. Fact-checking and research by AG with support from Jaleesa Johnson and Jordan Coburn. Mueller, She Wrote staff includes AG, Jaleesa Johnson, Jordan Coburn, Sarah Hirschberger Valencia, Jesse Egan, and Sarah Lee Steiner. Our web design and branding are by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios, and our website is MuellerSheWrote.com.